week John Wesley died in 1791, he wrote a letter. Wesley, the father of what's become known as the Evangelical Revival, was writing to anti-slavery campaigner William Wilberforce. He challenged Wilberforce to go in the name of God and the power of his might till even American slavery, the vilest that ever saw the sun, shall vanish away before it. The Wesleyan evangelical impulse was centred on love, not just as a doctrinal truth, but as a concrete action to reflect God's love for the world by making the world a better place. The first fires of the evangelical revival were lit as Wesley stepped out of the church to preach to poor miners in the fields. As members of the Wesleyan strand known as the New Connection, William and Catherine were part of a movement emphasising two distinctives. One, as the name Connection indicates, an understanding that the church was not simply about local congregations, but a connected whole. Second, the New Connection had a profound sense of social justice. William and Catherine brought this understanding of God's practical love for those outside the church into their ministry at the Christian mission. However, they also realised an increasing focus on servicing the pastoral needs of converts would eventually turn the movement in on itself and swamp their primary purpose. The answer was the Salvation Army. There was no place in an army for passengers. William and Catherine and all of the first-generation Salvationists were not formed by the internal culture of the Salvation Army. In 1883, when the foundation stone of my home corps of Brunswick and Melbourne was laid, it read, "The Reverend William Booth, General." The word Reverend reflects Booth's position as an ordained Methodist, and placing of the word General after rather than before his name as perhaps reflecting the Methodist usage of General Superintendent. Many of those who helped shape the Salvation Army in its early days, though active Christians, never joined the ranks. The most notable was W.T. Stead, the leading London journalist and editor of the Pall Mall Gazette, who was extremely close to Catherine, Bramwell and William. He was a committed member of the Congregational Church and remained so. He is best known for organising the Maiden Tribute campaign against child prostitution, which first brought the Army significant public profile. He later became the principal assistant to Booth in writing his great social manifesto, In Darkest England and the Way Out. When In Darkest England was published in 1891, many of its illustrations were drawn from Australia, where James and Alice Barker had been extraordinarily successful as the country's first national commanders. They combined evangelical zeal with an acute Wesleyan social conscience focused on the poor. Barker's prison gate homes are acknowledged by historians as the beginning of the Army's formal worldwide social ministry. In 1889, the Barkers were recalled to England, where James became responsible for organising the Salvation Army's Lights in Darkest England match campaign. The Army's matchboxes included the slogan, "Fair wages for fair work." At Christmas in 1893, the Australian war cry featured a full front-page graphic illustration of the Salvation Army's vision of a just society. It embraced everything, from free education to universal access to the law. Some historians have commented that this increased public visibility of the Army on issues of practical social concern coincided with a significant increase in Salvationist numbers, as the ideal of the Army as Christians with their sleeves rolled up, caring for the world outside the church, began to resonate with the public. Has the Army lost this vital connection between evangelical and social ministry? Bramwell Booth once observed that central to the rationale of the Darkest England scheme was to provide soldiers with a means of practical ministry in the world. As William Booth commented to one journalist when asked about the tension between evangelism and social reform, "There are Siamese twins. To kill one is to slay them both. Does this challenge remain relevant for the army today?